Hello, welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto. Very disturbing case out of Mississippi was passed on to me by quite a few people who were troubled by the position that the state has taken in court. And it's one of these situations where somebody's taken a moronic position, an absolutely idiotic position in court. And sometimes, when you've got no defense and you figure, well, we'll just try something crazy. I kind of get that, but you can't go this crazy. So, Mississippi police officers fatally shot a man in a wrong door raid. That is, they knocked on the wrong door and then killed somebody. The city says that the man they killed had no constitutional rights because he was an undocumented immigrant. And that makes no sense at all, but we'll go through the story here. 2 years ago, police officers arrived at a Mississippi home in the middle of the night to execute a warrant. But they knocked on the wrong person's door. A commotion ensued, and they shot the homeowner in the back of the head. That's according to state investigators. Now, the city of South Haven has argued in their legal briefs that the man was not protected by the U.S. Constitution because he was an undocumented immigrant. So they're saying he was a person, but he does not have any constitutional rights because he was an undocumented immigrant. Aaron Neglia, a lawyer for Lopez's wife, said, "It's the most absurd thing in the world. What they're saying is that because this man is undocumented, it's okay to kill him." And that is what they're saying, and it is absurd. Attorneys for Lopez's family have filed a civil lawsuit over the shooting, seeking $20 million in damages for Lopez's widow. They've argued that Lopez was the victim of one of the worst police shootings in recent memory. And so the city, South Haven Police Department, and the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation have alleged that officers opened fire on Lopez after he pointed a rifle at them. But that is something, of course, that Lopez's side denies. But here's the thing. If he pointed a rifle at him, and he shot them in self-defense, or they shot him in self-defense, then that's an argument you can make. And if a jury buys it, you might get away with it. But to say, well, by the way, he's got no constitutional rights, that's crazy. So an attorney for South Haven who wrote the legal brief argued that Lopez, due to his immigration status and criminal history, had no rights under the Fourth Amendment or the 14th Amendments to the Constitution. The amendments protect against unreasonable searches and seizures and guarantee equal protection under the laws, respectively. Here's what they wrote. Ismael Lopez may have been a person on American soil, but he was not one of the "we the people" of the United States, entitled to civil rights invoked in this lawsuit. Attorney Catherine Kirby wrote. An attorney wrote that. Ismael Lopez had insufficient connections with the United States of the type, dignity, and caliber required to attain standing for 4th or 14th Amendment protection. I need to know what law school she went to and what bar she passed to suggest that a person on American soil is not one of "we the people" entitled to civil rights. In fact, the article I'm reading here says that immigrants, both documented and undocumented, are protected by the Constitution, as is anyone on U.S. soil, and that is, of course, the law. Now, the question is whether Catherine Kirby, the attorney, actually believes what she wrote or was told to write this by somebody else. But you have to understand that an attorney signs their name to something, and in most states that I'm aware of, ethical rules require you to, if you sign your name to it, it means that you have a good faith belief that it is the law or a good argument under the law. And so if Catherine Kirby, whose name I keep repeating here because I think she should be shamed, if Catherine Kirby honestly signed her name to a document stating that a person on American soil is not one of "we the people" of the United States, the Supreme Court has affirmed these protections before, such as in the landmark 1982 case of Plyler versus Doe, which held that immigrant children are protected under the Equal Protection Clause. Kirby also argued in her brief that Lopez's criminal history precluded him from constitutional protections. Ismael Lopez was a convicted felon for a crime of violence while in the U.S. and a fugitive from justice in violation of the terms of probation with an outstanding warrant for deportation, as well as being a felon in possession and an illegal alien in possession of a firearm at the time you open the door to the knock of the described South Haven police officers. So, apparently, though, if you're a criminal, you don't have any constitutional rights either, according to attorney Catherine Kirby. Catherine spelled with a K, Kirby spelled Kerby. Catherine Kirby. She's an attorney. the attorney for Lopez said he believed that Kirby's legal brief was akin to a hate manifesto and said she was warping the true meaning of the Constitution. She ain't warping it. She's looking at a different planet. She's just every human being on American soil has constitutional rights. It's very clear in the Constitution where they say we the people. They don't say residents or citizens. They say people. You don't even need to go that far. We'll get to that in a second. The U.S. Supreme Court has made it clear that any individual on American soil, regardless of how they got here, has constitutional protections. That's absolutely the case. That's the attorney for Lopez pointing that out. Again, Catherine with a K and Kirby with a K, who claims that your immigration status affects your legal rights under the Constitution, is... So in case you're curious what the 14th Amendment actually says, I won't make you go look it up. I'll read it to you. It's not that complicated. It does start by saying, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. And remember that the 14th Amendment was passed at the end of the Civil War. That's what that's getting at. So this is not applying to this case. It does say no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Okay? Next part. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor to deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So Catherine Kirby needs to go back to law school and read the 14th Amendment. Actually, she doesn't need to go back to law school because she can look it up on the computer like I did. Go to Google, type in the 14th Amendment, and then read the text of it. The words are in English. Read the English language. It says, nor shall any state, Mississippi's a state last time I checked, nor shall any state deprive any person, and so of course Ismael Lopez was in fact a person. This is not higher math, this is not advanced rocket science, this is not like, aerodynamic ballistics or anything. This is literally just simple, plain English. Ismael Lopez is a person. The United States is a country. Mississippi is a state. This happened in the state of Mississippi. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The argument is that Ismael Lopez lost his life at the hands of state operators with the state of Mississippi. This again, like I said, I'm sorry I have to break it down like this, but apparently there's an attorney named Catherine Kirby in Mississippi who doesn't understand this. And she signed her name to a document where she swears that she has a good faith belief that what she's saying is correct. Okay? If she believes that, like I said, but she doesn't believe it. She can't believe it. There's no way she got through law school and passed a bar exam and believes this to be true. There's no way. And when your client tells you to make an insane argument, you stand up to your client and say, I'm not making a stupid argument. I'm not making an insane argument. I've had clients come to me and say, Steve, I want you to make the following argument. And I look at my client and go, I'm not doing that. And they go, but I want you to. And I go, I don't care. Okay? As an attorney, I am required. I have a duty to the court. I've got a duty to the system. I've got a duty to the law. I've got a duty to my client. And the duty is the same. I have to stand up for what the law actually says and what the law actually does. I cannot get up in front of a court and say with a straight face that Ismael Lopez is not a person. He's a person. And I also cannot get up in front of a court and say Ismael Lopez was an undocumented person, therefore he's not a person. That's insanity. And you also can't get up in front of the court and say Mississippi's not a state. Mississippi's obviously a state. And you can't say Ismael Lopez wasn't deprived of anything because he was killed. He was deprived of life. Okay? This is like see Dick run, Sally, Dick, and Jane stuff. This is so simple. The 14th Amendment is simple. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Game over. The attorneys who filed this brief in Mississippi should be sanctioned. If I was a judge and you filed that in my court, I'd actually call you in and say, let me ask you one question. Do you believe what you wrote there to be true? Then I'd say, do you believe it's good law? Are there any cases you can find where the Supreme Court has said this? Have you ever heard of this before? Has anyone ever heard? No. So what you're arguing now is a novel approach, correct? So since it's not established case law, it must be that you're asking for the reversal extension or some other interpretation of case law heretofore unknown, right? You're asking us to go away from the law in a different direction, right? And do you believe that direction is more correct than what the Supreme Court has repeatedly said, and that is that people are people? And if somebody stood there with a straight face and kept saying it to me, I would actually consider having them sent for a psych exam. Because there's no way you can believe that to be true. You cannot, with a straight face, stand in open court. Remember, attorneys are officers of the court. An attorney who stands in open court and says something, whether they're under oath or not, it's the equivalent of being under oath. And so an attorney who says something that they do not believe to be true and makes such an idiotic argument in open court on the record is either crazy or so horribly unethical they shouldn't be practicing law. And if they're that crazy, they shouldn't be practicing law. This is the most absurd argument ever heard made in court. Now, I've heard some bad arguments before, and I admit some of them were crazy, but I've never heard one that was made this crazy about such a serious topic. Okay? I mean, I've had people argue about whether or not a car is defective that leaks, okay? Or a car is defective that makes weird noise. You can argue about that all day long. But you cannot argue about the fact that Ismael Lopez was a human being. He was a person. Mississippi is a state. And when you kill somebody, you take their life. And to kill somebody without due process of law is what the argument is here. And to suggest that because he was not a documented immigrant, that he has no rights is absurd. So I'm not sure if it's been clear to you what my position is on this, but this is one of the craziest cases I've heard of in a long, long time, and I hope the courts laugh it away, but I don't know if they will these days. You never know. We'll see what happens. I will update you. Otherwise, questions or comments, put them below. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.